Hi, Conduit. I hope you are enjoying the fall weather as much as I am. This week we continued in our sermon series called It's All About Jesus. And this week we talked about kind of the question or the nuance of how can we be so involved in even ministry or in church life or close to Jesus, seemingly close to Jesus, but still miss the mark. We looked in a passage in Matthew chapter 7 where Jesus says, "Many will come to me and say, Lord, Lord, but I will tell them that, I did not know you, depart from me." And this passage is a challenge to us. It's a wake-up call that just because we have an appearance of being religious or appearance of following doesn't necessarily mean that we have a relationship, a place in which we know Jesus. We looked at even the disciples at the Last Supper, their last couple of hours with their dear friend Jesus, who they'd spent years with. Jesus had just washed their feet, and he had just instituted communion for the first time. He had explained it. And then they get into an argument. They get into an argument amongst themselves, arguing which one of them is going to be the greatest, which of them is the best follower of Jesus. And that's something that we all need to be on the lookout for, that we all need to be aware of, is that truly, it's not about all of the religious things. And many of us, even in our own lives, find that we're chasing a version of sort of what I'll call the good life. It's the life that we have defined that we want. And the fact of that matter is, as long as we're chasing our version of the good life, we're going to continue to be running on a bit of a hamster wheel. And my encouragement for us, or our encouragement from the Bible in particular, was to look at John chapter 3, starting in verse 22. And where we see a fascinating story that I think holds a really important key for us. This is in John chapter 3, starting in verse 22. John the Baptist, whose ministry was to proclaim about Jesus before Jesus' ministry started, has an interaction with some of his disciples. John the Baptist had baptized Jesus not too long ago. And his disciples came up to him and said, "Rabbi, that guy you baptized, Jesus, who you were talking about, he's over there and his disciples are baptizing people now. And people are going to him rather than you. This is a problem. Your ministry is going to start disappearing because people are going away to him." And John the Baptist, rather than responding with, "Oh yeah, well, let's figure out a way to get back, get people back. And what can I do to make baptism bigger, shinier, more attractive and get people to come back to my ministry?" John says, no, that's what's supposed to happen. John desires to decrease while Christ increases. John has this radical orientation of his heart where he says, I would rather be forgotten and Christ be remembered. And in fact, that's the point of his whole ministry. And that kind of heart position is so hard for us to cultivate. But John gives us a clue as to what really that is. Really, how can John be satisfied with a ministry that doesn't cycle around him, that is ultimately going to diminish for the betterment of Christ's kingdom? How can he be satisfied with that? How can he jump off of that treadmill? And the secret is where he finds his joy. He finds his joy in Christ. He makes an analogy of a wedding and the best man taking joy in seeing the groom's joy, in seeing the union between the groom and the bride. And so here we see that really, if we want to get off the treadmill of chasing our own version of the good life, if we want to truly be following Christ and not just have the religious appearance of following Christ, then we need to be focusing in on where we get our joy from. We could say that if we truly follow, if we let the joy of Christ lead us, eventually we will display the glory of Christ. Whatever it is in this world that we take joy in is the thing that we will display, is the thing that we will be formed by. It is the thing that we will worship. And so my encouragement for you, and the thing that I felt particularly called from even in this passage, was, am I spending enough time to be delighting in Jesus, to be finding joy in my relationship with him? And if I'm doing that, how might that change my walk with Jesus? How might that shift from just an outward appearance of following Christ, but also shift to a more genuine expression? How might pursuing something, joy that truly satisfies in Jesus, shift my perspective from living a life where I feel like I'm on a hamster wheel, constantly chasing the next big thing, and I'm able to sit and be there present with Christ? I hope that this is an encouraging study for you during this busy season. I hope you're able to enjoy some of the fall weather outside. Conduit, I hope that you find joy in Christ this week and you have good discussions. I'll talk to y'all later.